Well, what if I told you I have a copy of the last book written by a human being? Well, I think I might have it. It's also subtitled Becoming Wiser in the Age of AI. And our guest today is Jeff Burningham, who I'm very fortunate to have made contact with. And I looked through his book quite deeply and read quite a number of sections in it. And I knew right away that it was a very, very important book and a conversation that I thought you guys all needed to be part of for reasons that I think are probably fairly obvious to anyone listening to my podcast. But I think taking a deeper dive into these issues and getting clear within ourselves what it means to be human versus transhuman or something other is a very, very important thing that we need to all do together. And I'm going to explore that exact topic with Jeff today. So Jeff, welcome.
Paul, it's so good to be with you. I'm glad that you enjoyed the book.
Yeah, no, it's a very important book. It's an honest book. And
yeah, it is.
I think it's your soul reaching out to the world to say, hey, wake up.
It is.
Smell honest the coffee.
Honest books are hard to write. You know, we definitely as humans seem to be a social seeking species, and for good reason, but sometimes less of a truth seeking species. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that fits right in with the outline today, because I wanted to talk to you about how all this relates to the process of individuation in a Jungian conception. And I think, we're going to get into these issues, but I think a lot of the things that have been going on in the world are the direct result of us not stepping into our spiritual or physical adulthood. And that lends us to all sorts of gurus, whether they be technological or psychological or, human. And the history of how that's worked out for us is showing its face right now. And I think it's really high time for us to, step into ourselves. And I think a lot of what's going on really is part of our initiation into both the adulthood of being human and taking responsibility for our choices, but a spiritual adulthood, which is something other than just a physical maturation or a centering in the ego. It's as you know, it's well beyond that. But to begin, Jeff, I'd like to have you share a bit about yourself with our listeners so that everybody listening knows what shaped you into the man you are today. So maybe you can start with an overview of your background, what your worldview is, and why you wrote your new book, the last book written by a human, Becoming Wiser in the Age of AI.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Paul. One word, I don't know if you caught this line in the book, but as Sally and I my wife and I have been really deep in this awakening process the last 5 years. I ran for governor in Utah, lost in 2020. So since then, I often say to her, welcome to adulting,
Yeah, amen.
Welcome to adulting. Here we go. We're maturing. We're growing up. Yeah, let's see. I grew up in Spokane, Washington, the oldest of 6 kids in a very high demand, closed box religion. I grew up active Latter-day Saint or Mormon. I served a mission in I grew up a high school athlete. I was a quarterback in high school, a point guard in basketball. Yeah, I love sports. Love water sports. Grew up wake surfing, wakeboarding, water skiing on the lakes there in the Pacific Northwest.
What is that behind you? I don't know if it's
it's a surfboard that I broke in half while I was surfing. So I just kind of made. Now it's art. It's art.
Yeah, I was wondering because it almost looks like a snowshoe.
No, it's a surfboard. So yeah, I grew up in the beautiful Pacific Northwest in a great family that was challenged, as all families have their challenges. It wounded me in unique ways, like all families do, but it was also wonderful. Served a mission in Charlotte, North Carolina for my church, came back to BYU, met my wife at the MTC. I was a teacher at the Missionary Training Center in Provo. Met her there. I wrote a little bit about that in the book. And then became a serial entrepreneur, started a technology company, as an undergrad, sold it to a NASDAQ listed firm when I was in my mid 20s, rolled the proceeds of that into real estate, started the fastest growing private equity real estate firm here in Utah. It's called Peak Capital Partners. Over the last 20 years, we've owned about $10 billion in assets. We grew it during the Great Recession. It was a fun ride. I like when there is some risk in the system, Paul. I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah, well, there's lots right
now. Exactly. It's time for me to write this book. So once we had grown to maybe $500 million or assets, and I knew that Peak Capital was going to be okay. We almost didn't make it, by the way, the first couple of years. Obviously, the Great Recession was so long and hard, we almost didn't make it. But when we turned it around significantly. And I knew we had a little bit of extra money, and I knew that there was an oversupply of good entrepreneurs in the state of Utah. There's a fast-growing tech corridor called the Silicon Slopes. And there wasn't enough good capital. So I stood up the first institutional venture fund in Utah County along the Silicon Slopes. It was called Peak Ventures. We were the first investor in probably 10 to 15 now, what are now billion-dollar tech companies here in Utah. It was a fun ride. In 2017, I traveled to India. That's where the book starts, by the way.
Yeah, I read that. It was very good.
Thank you. On the Ganges River. In Varanasi, India. And I felt my soul, Paul, being called. I had a scene there that maybe we'll talk about, maybe not, but I start the book with this scene. My soul was like being lured into deeper waters. This is what I felt like. So I was really busy running all my companies, doing all my things. So my wife, Sally, and I started talking about what the next phase might look like. And one of the things that we discussed was running for political office. Sure enough, I get home, and the chair of one of the large parties here in Utah was a good friend of mine. He starts recruiting me. Others start talking to me. Before I knew it, I lost my mind and I ran for governor in the state of Utah.
Well, at least you made it a good effort.
Yeah,
it's not
I did.
over yet. You can do it again.
Yeah, I hope I don't do it again. That's kind of a one and done thing. It feels like. I hope so, at least. So ran for governor 2019. The most critical months of the campaign, wouldn't you know it, were March, April, May, and June of 2020, right when the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
I was an outsider. I'm not a politician. I'm an entrepreneur. I thought I could bring a fresh perspective to a lot of the growth that's happening in our state. But I was running against two very well-known politicians, one who had run for president, John Huntsman Jr. And so anyways, it became evident during the pandemic that there was not going to be an outsider win this race. When markets are disrupted, I've seen this in financial markets, but certainly just in life in general, there's a flight to safety. And so that occurred, lost the race. And so, sorry, this is kind of a long intro, Paul, but let me just wrap it up.
It's all
here.
good. Yeah. I think it's important. I think it's important for my listeners to always get a deep sense of who it is that they're listening to see where they came from and how they see the world, so that when they're sharing wisdom, they get a sense of how it emerged. Otherwise it can just sound like it's just, pulling fortune cookies and looking at stuff out of nowhere. And I'd rather get a sense of your essence, so I know exactly how you shaped your worldview and what's important to you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. With that, then let me say two things to wrap up. Number one, interesting back, I've been a bishop in my church. I've been a leader in several different levels of my church all through this entrepreneurship journey. So I've led a congregation of 500 or so dear souls. So I had a lot of interesting life experience in it from a spiritual, religious context as well. Lost the governor's race in 2020. And Paul, you may know a little bit about Mormonism. We are on a fast track. This is the meaning, just like it is just constant doing. The first time in my adult life, this is a true statement, in my entire adult life, where I had any space and time was when I was 43 years old, sad to say, in the summer of 2020 during the pandemic.
Yeah, well, it did give people a chance to slow down a little bit.
It did. I had space and time, losing the governor's race for the first time in my adult life. And I started finally going inside. I started going in. It was the most obviously public defeat of my life. It was a very interesting experience. It was the summer of, COVID. And as I did that, I was very surprised at what emerged. And that's probably what we'll talk about today. And the first, I guess, physical manifestation of that is this crazy cosmic book that I wrote called The Last Book Written by a Human, that launched a week ago, actually today, Paul. And so what a ride we've been on. And I think it's just getting started.
Yeah, it's a very important transition from what I call externalization of the soul to coming back into one's center. And I think I've been on this path a very, very long time. My mother became a yogi when I was 12. So I began meditation and working with monks, and, people on the podcast know my story, so I won't rehash it. But I was grateful that my mother left Christianity, which I found very troubling, deeply troubling. And then had guidance and support to get deeper into myself. But I've been a therapist for 41 years now, and I've found that the pattern that I have to help people is get out of an external expression of the soul to identify yourself by what other people think of you, and what your status is, how much money you have, what kind of car you drive, where you live. That's what I mean by externalization of the soul, and come into your center. And I think that's the only time we can really ask the most important question. Steiner describes the birth of the awareness soul as emerging when we start asking, is it really true? Is it really true that God will burn you in hell for this or that sin? Is it really true that, whatever you want to put in there, right? And instead of just believing stuff you read out of books or you're told in a church or a temple. And I think that is the only way we can develop a relationship with what Jung would call the self, which is the unconscious, the highest self, and the soul is one functional unit in relationship with the ego. And if we don't make that journey inward, then you get what you saw during COVID, where you can say almost anything on television. And it shocked me to my core and broke my heart to see Christian preachers and higher ups of all kind, and even the Pope telling people God wants you to get vaccinated. I'm like, what kind of crap is this? And the sad part of it is that people that are still childlike in their psychological development, they fall for that and they believe that because they don't ask, is it really true, and do the work. So I think it's lovely for me as a therapist and a teacher to thousands and thousands of people worldwide to hear of your own coming in. And it's kind of the magic behind COVID is that it really gave a lot of people a chance to ask, is it really true? And what is important to me now? And how can I take advantage of this opportunity? And for a lot of people, it was a career change. And a great example of what COVID did is, I teach rock stacking and how to use rock stacking and creating things out of stone as a spiritual practice to get deeper into your soul and into nature. And
of course you do. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had a rock stacking workshop coming up during the pandemic, and I needed more rocks for my rock garden because I had like 60 people coming, which is a lot of people for a rock stacking workshop. So I went down to buy some pallets of rocks at the local garden and stone supply, which is huge. It's acres and acres and acres of stuff. And I went down there and the place was hopping like a beehive. I mean, like there was lines of people. And I'm like, what in the hell is going on? And I said to the lady at the cash register, here I am on like a Friday afternoon or something where I thought people would be at work or tied up. So this place is just jacked. She said, yeah, since the pandemic, everybody wants to fix their yard up, and so people are starting gardens and making their home beautiful and finally, spending time in their own temple instead of kind of bowing to the god of industry. So my only point is, I think sometimes the devil works in mysterious ways.
Hydration is one of the 6 Chek foundation principles for a healthy, holistic life. And now Peak has made it even easier to help keep your body and skin hydrated while also promoting better sleep, which is another of the Chek foundation principles, with their new Deep Hydration Protocol. Peak's Deep Hydration Protocol is a 2-part drinkable skincare system that keeps your body hydrated around the clock. Get a morning boost with BT Fountain, which is powered by clinically proven ceramides and hyaluronic acid for skin radiance and gives gentle, lasting energy to start your day. Relax in the evening with RE Fountain, containing triple biomaxed magnesium to support deep rest, nervous system recovery, and next day mental clarity, helping you unwind and wake up refreshed. As with all of Peak's products, the Deep Hydration Protocol is made with clean, pure ingredients without sugar, fillers, or artificial flavors. It's easy to mix, simple to add into your morning and evening routines, and tastes great. Upgrade your hydration and wake up refreshed. Get 20% off for life, receive a complimentary gift, and explore Peak Life's entire line of Chek-approved teas and supplements at peaklife.com/Paul Chek. That's PIQUE life.com/Paul Chek.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think that you and I could talk about I would say, kind of quote unquote, divine purpose of COVID, so to speak, in the sense that like the timing of it. And I think it relates to AI as well here. But yeah, it's just in the air we breathe. I mean, I grew up in the Western US, like I said, in a very structured religion, highly capitalistic in good ways and not so good ways. I was very self-driving and entrepreneurial. And it was just the air I breathed. I just became like this, I say in the book, a human doing. I thought it was about doing more. And of course, one of the great lies, as you know, Paul, is that if we do more, I can be more, which is not necessarily the case. And so I think this is, again, I talk in the book about AI being a cosmic mirror or a reflection to us. And I think this is one of the hidden gems, one of the blessings in disguise here with AI is that I hope it turns humanity back to itself. I hope that we appreciate the beauty and messiness of real soul-to-soul connection, of real human connection, and that more of us have the courage, because as you know, it can be scary. We avoid it. But I hope more and more of us have the courage to go inside, to look inside, because again, as you know, it's funny. I'm an adjunct professor to thousands of students down at BYU, down the street from me, entrepreneurial students. And one of the things that I often say to them is that the most powerful ideas are often the most simple and therefore the most neglected. And this is one, and this is one of those ideas. What we're searching for, like you said, Paul, is not outside of us. It is inside of us. That is what we are searching for. But we get so distracted and so caught up in all the external that we fail to go inside. I think we're going to have a great leveling point here over the next decade for humanity to take a look inside. AI is going to take us there. It's going to push us there. I'm not going to say it's going to push us there through pain. Unfortunately, humans often need pain to change, but I think it can happen. And this book's kind of a manifesto for how that can happen, or, kind of a rallying cry for that to happen, to have AI focus squarely on human flourishing instead of human destruction or further division.
Yeah. And I've got lots in the outline, so I'm kind of holding my comments till we get to where we can take them one at a time and look into these things, because these are all issues that are very important to me. I recently recorded an excellent podcast with one of my Spirit Gym Mastery Group students, Rachel Miles, who's actually she's a tech engineer, she a software programmer, developer, and she's worked with multiple big corporations and developed AI systems. I shared her little document with you on the effective use. And
Super
so
cool.
we covered a lot of the really important aspects of AI and its pros and its cons and things like that in the podcast, because it's very important for me to people are aware of that. But I've got more down below in the outline, so I'll wait till we get to there. The next thing I wanted to ask you about, though, is you made a lot of really interesting and important statements in your book. So in your book, you're speaking of investing in hundreds of startup businesses and ventures and coming to the realization that there's a parallel between the growth cycle of tech and related businesses, I would assume, and one's personal growth cycle. It seems to me that what you're saying is that our business ventures are mirrors for ourselves. So could you expand on what you've observed and learned in this regard?
Yeah, absolutely. And the book kind of follows this format. But I think that it always starts with disruption. So the first section of the book is disruption. Any technological advancement, any entrepreneurial endeavor comes from some experience of disruption, whether that's you had a bad experience, you see a problem that needs to be solved, there are changes in the macro economy, and you think that you can provide a solution. So change is the only constant, as you know, Paul. Disruption is our opportunity. And obviously in the age of AI, we're being disrupted here. Yeah, and if I could, the book is kind of maybe a little bit of my heroic journey laid on top of AI's development and where we can kind of go with it. And it's a spiritual path that I think always starts with disruption. Then there's reflection. Once we've been disrupted, we have a chance to reflect. One of the scary things about AI, obviously, is its speed and how quickly it's emerging and happening. But we're always given at least some time to reflect, to think about this disruption. This is obviously often where the hero refuses the call. I certainly did that in writing this book. You asked why I wrote it, Paul. I had to write it. Yeah. That's why I wrote it. I had to. I felt like I had to. This wasn't a choice per se that I made, or it wasn't on my path of things to do. I felt like I had to do that. So disruption is the first step. Reflection is the second. And then eventually, I think once we enter the unknown, we enter the collective heroic journey, whether that's a spiritual journey for ourselves or whether that's providing a product, let's say in the marketplace. That's when we begin to transform things. And so the third section is transformation. Once we transform things, once we've gone through that transformational process, we can hit the fourth stage, which is what I think we're headed towards here, which is evolution. That's when the hero returns with the wisdom. That's when the entrepreneur understands their product and the product market fit, and they can evolve a market. They can evolve a family system. They can evolve a world, let's say, even through returning with this wisdom based on this kind of 4-step process that I outline in the book.
Yeah. One of the things that's deeply concerning to me with AI is when we talk about reflection. I teach the 3 qualities of the soul that Plotinus taught in his teachings, which are abiding, reflection, and representation. So within us is the abiding function of God. And you earlier you mentioned something that I was going to share, but I didn't want to interrupt you. I don't know if you're familiar with what St. Francis of Assisi used to tell people when they would come to him all the time and say, "How do I find God?"
No, tell me. I want to hear this.
He said, "What you are looking for is what's looking."
Yes.
Right. And so
that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, I've heard that. That's awesome.
That is something that religious people all over the world have been distracted from.
Yeah.
Because when you get into an ideology or an ism or a belief system, you just believe. You don't meditate on, reflect on, and ask, is it really true? And so the point I'm driving at here is that AI is now becoming such a guru figure for people that instead of spending time in themselves and with themselves, for example, one of my favorite types of meditation is contemplative meditation.
Yeah. And
I've studied it quite a lot. I took a course in contemplative meditation. It was an audio course from a Christian priest who was very, very good. For a Christian priest, he blew my mind. And for those listening, contemplative meditation, for example, I'll take a line from a poem by Rumi or something very, very deep or a statement by Jung, and I will sit with it and I'll simply ask my soul to please help me understand this to its full potential. And that could go on for a week or more until my soul says that, you've got what you wanted to know. But you see, that's exactly the process that people just turn to AI for. And in 0.28 seconds, they're getting something that they don't realize is just somebody else's ideas from some website somewhere in Timbuktu or wherever. And then they believe it. And so you just go from belief to belief to belief, and you don't grow the inner relationship with your own official intelligence, not artificial intelligence. Yeah. You don't grow into the connection with God consciousness that has far more power than any AI system will ever have. But if we don't practice using it, then we just become atrophied. And, Steiner warned about how these technologies would potentially undermine our spiritual development.
Yeah.
And I think that people need to be much more conscious about, AI is like a phone and a mind. They make far better tools than masters. And I think when AI starts becoming people's guru and teacher and guide, it's too childlike, because then it becomes a mommy or a daddy figure. And now you're right back in the same rabbit hole that the globalists want you in, because you're very easy to control, manipulate, and you just start believing shit like it's fact. And look what that did during COVID. That's now led to somewhere between 22 and 25 million deaths and God knows how many severe injuries. So those are things that concern me.
Yeah, well, I'm so grateful to be having this conversation, Paul, right now with you, because as I dove back into the venture capital work that I had missed when I ran a statewide campaign for 18 months, AI was the technology far and away that stood out. And I've invested in, a dozen or two AI companies since then. But what instantly fascinated me were these existential questions that you're asking. And I wrote this book to be a conversation starter. I kind of wrote this book to say, hey, wait up. Like, we're missing the point here of AI, or what the possible point could be, via hyper effectiveness and getting things done and turning to it in an addictive way like we have our other technologies. We're missing or making money, gaining power and control. That's not the point of AI. Fortunately, Paul, I believe, as in this case, as is often the case, that the obstacle becomes the way here. And that's my argument in the book, is that this obstacle, quote unquote, of AI can become the way. I talk about it as a crucible that we as humans must pass through together. Now, I'm a futurist in this book, and this is a book written kind of for the future. I'm trying to talk about what I see as some of the outcomes here and what's happening. No one knows this for sure. I think AI is going to be so destabilizing to normal everyday life, like you said, Paul, that we will return to ourselves. This is what I'm asking. So turn away from the I. You could almost see the Paul Chek and the Jeff Burningham, I'm saying avatars in the digital world, duking it out or whatever, arguing, talking, while you and I, Paul, are connecting like this, face to face, sharing a drink, sharing a meal, singing songs, connecting heart to heart. And that's gonna come through a lot of pain, unfortunately. I think it's gonna be very destabilizing for a lot of humanity. And I hope that through that destabilization, like I said, the obstacle becomes the way. We learn to use AI wisely as a reflection to help us appreciate our humanity and to like I say in the book, rehumanize ourselves. That's the voyage that I think we're on. And I think AI can be a tool in doing this. At least I'm trying to paint a picture. I'm not saying this is likely. I'm not saying that I would bet on this. I'm trying to paint a picture of where we could go, a beautiful picture that I hope that we seize as a collective together.
Protein is an essential part of everyday life, but where you get your protein from and when you consume it can make a huge difference. Organifi's Complete Protein makes it easy for you to get high-quality, clean protein into your meals. Start your day with a breakfast shake, and you'll find the ingredients in Organifi's Complete Protein work together to help reduce cravings all day, as well as providing organic vitamins and minerals. People often assume that if something is organic, it's also free from pesticides and residues. Sadly, that isn't always true. Even in the cleanest of conditions, contamination is still possible. Although Organifi is not required to test for things like glyphosate residue and other chemicals that can affect your health, they take the extra step and spend the extra money to thoroughly test their protein before it goes out the door and into your home. Organifi's Complete Protein is a unique combination of 3 complex plant-based proteins and other organic whole foods, making it a great choice for those who struggle with bloating or indigestion from dairy or whey protein powders. It comes in 2 great flavors, chocolate or vanilla, and is easy to mix up on its own or add some fruit, nuts, and seeds to make a delicious smoothie. My personal favorite is blending the vanilla with bananas and almond butter. To try Organifi's Complete Protein and save 20%, go to Organifi.com/Chek20 and use the promo code Chek20. That's Organifi.com/Chek20 and use Chek20 for a 20% discount.
Yeah, I think all those are possibilities. I mean, AI is, it's another technology in the hands of human beings. And I can tell you as a very experienced therapist, human beings still have a hard time with sugar, food, sex, drugs, almost anything with the power to transform, whether it be, look at the psychedelic revolution. I mean, I've had to rehab countless people that have fucked themselves up on the very medicines I use to help myself grow, heal, and get deeper into God. But, when people have access to things without wise elders to guide them and a clear sense of mission, vision, values, and the sacred, then, you're just handing TNT over to people, which is never a good idea if you don't know how to use something that powerful. But go ahead.
Can I just say one thing there, Paul? I agree with you. What do we do? Can I ask you? One of the things that so I'm kind of betting on a renaissance in human consciousness here over the next decade. And I think that there will be more structure in a good way. I'm saying structure with a lowercase s put around this. Do you agree with that? Do you see that coming? How do we do that?
Well, I think what we do is we get people like you that are deep enough and wise enough to be an elder, to write books like you just did, have podcasts like this, educate people, inform people. But, look, I can tell you, I've got over 63,000 students in my institute worldwide. And I've watched, after I've sat there and educated people on all aspects of holistic health. I've watched them walk right out the door and do exactly the opposite. And so, the point I'm making is no amount of education or wise elder saves anyone from the hero's journey. Yeah. One of the great examples of that is Chief Joseph, the chief of the Nez Perce Indians. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah, I mean, vaguely. I don't know his story like you do, I bet.
Well, my mother's a famous sculptor, and you can't see it, but right over here is a beautiful bust of Chief Joseph. And my mom specializes in sculpting people who devoted their life to creating peace in the world, and he's one of them. But I'll use a brief summary of the story of Chief Joseph's life to make the point. This was back when the United States government was trying to take over all the Indians' land and force them into reservations, and this is back in the days of soldiers on horses. And Chief Joseph warned his warriors that the U.S. government and military would be impinging upon them, and that to be very, very careful to not do things like scalp them and start fights, because he said there's no way we can win against a force that big. He said we have to be careful. And so he was doing his best to guide these people. Well, sure enough, there was a skirmish, and some of the people in his tribe got killed, which happened to be the family members of some of his warriors. And so they went out and they scalped a bunch of the soldiers, the U.S. military. And then, sure enough, they put a full court press, and they chased Chief Joseph's tribe for 18 months. And he was running to try to cross the Canadian border to get away from them. They caught him, I think, something like 60 miles from the border, forced him into a reservation, and Chief Joseph died of a broken heart. And so the point I'm making is, here you see young men getting wise counsel from a very wise man who could not restrain themselves and had to go out and do exactly what young men do and young people do all the time, because they have to go on their own hero's journey. So the reality of it is we are already seeing it with transhumanism. We're seeing it with AI. We're seeing it with the third wave of psychedelic drug revival. We're seeing it with phones. We're seeing it with social media. We're seeing the problems that the medical industry has created with drugs and vaccines. And we see how many people during COVID fell right into it and didn't think for themselves and didn't listen to wise counsel. I mean, I could go on and on.
I get that, but isn't this the path that we're all on, Paul? I mean, this reminds me of the path of the Bodhisattva, this is kind of, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I think that might be the only game in town. I'm saying, quote unquote, if you know what I mean. So the point is, this is one of the things that I've said is, people said, you're crazy to release this book. You're crazy to do it so
You're
honestly.
Crazy not to.
You're crazy to be so vulnerable and honest. I mean, I was extraordinarily vulnerable in this book. And I said, look, some things are worth our very best efforts, no matter the outcome. And I think that humanity working with AI, trying to point it towards human flourishing, is one of those things. I think it's the work. I'm 48 years old. I think it's kind of the work of my generation to try to point AI in a positive direction for humanity. And let me just say, no matter the outcome, for like Jeff Burningham or the other thousands of people that will hopefully stand up and raise their voice and write similar books or have similar ideas. This is the path that we're all on, and it's a painful path, but it's a transformative path, and one that we both walk individually and collectively. And
well, it's the initiation into legitimate adulthood, both in the place of being a human and taking the responsibilities of being a human. Just like a tribal initiation, you have to get rid of the child and produce the warrior that can stand up and give their life for the tribe and to protect life. And ultimately, we're at a point right now where we have to get aware of the fact that a lot of these distractions are taking us away from the actual state of the world, the earth itself, and the fact that we're destroying Mother Nature to the point that we may bring on an ecological crisis that's far more threatening than anything AI can be responsible for. And that's part of the initiation process. And Rudolf Steiner, as those that listen to my podcast have heard me say many times, made a very staunch warning in the early 1900s. He said, human beings will continue to invent technologies outside of themselves until they either realize everything they are creating is an inferior copy of what's inside of themselves, or they destroy the world. The question is, which will come first? And that is the race that we're in right now.
It is. This is the time. And this is why the book had to be written now and had to be written in the way that it did, because I mean, I think I'm very loving in the book, but I don't pull any punches. I say, this is our call. It is time for humanity to rise up. And here's how we can do it. Here's some ideas. Let's start the discussion. Let's start working on it kind of together. But yeah, don't you see that unfolding like real time right in front of your eyes right now?
Absolutely. I've been watching it most of my adult career. I've got a 45-year-old son. I've been around for a while. I've got a grandson. I've also got a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. So I'm kind of like on both ends of the spectrum. And so I'm doing everything I can do. My children have been in Waldorf school from the beginning. We have a farm and 14 acres, and they learn every day on how to take care of animals and how nature works and how to use technology intelligently. And so, I mean, these are the things that's the other issue. We have to be careful that we're not using social media, televisions, and AI to parent our children, or we're setting them up for, the worst possible outcome.
Yes.
And that these are very real issues. I don't know if you're aware, but recently the first study came out analyzing the level of intelligence of children and college students and people using AI. And it showed beyond a shadow of a doubt that the more AI use there is, the less intelligent and the less capable they become.
Yeah, I am aware of that. And it reminds me, Paul, I bet your parents said to you, be careful of who your friends are. You kind of become, the average of the people that the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
This, I think I say in the book, this becomes especially interesting when you consider that our children are spending more and more time with a digital device, that their friends are not real, that they're actually machines.
Yes.
So the scary question that, again, I posit in the book, trying to wrap it in love, but I say, if that is true, and you and I know that from lived experience, that your friends and who you hang out with matter so much. If our children are hanging out with machines more than they are with people, what might they become, Paul?
Right.
What might our children and grandchildren become? I mean, that is the question that I leave hanging, in one of these chapters in the book. It's all there. We just have to decide to go on this heroic journey together, to infuse it with what I think is the baseline substance of all of existence, which is love. And we need to, like I've said, rehumanize ourselves. We're going to have to fight to stay in human relationship. Go ahead.
It boils down to leadership. It's dead simple. There's a couple of points I'll share with you based on what you've shared. I spent a lot of my life as a boxer and a kickboxer, and did very well. I fought on the Army boxing team. I became the trainer of the Army boxing team, which I spent the rest of my military career doing. That's how my whole career in holistic health got started. But I was a successful fighter. And one of the things that many of my coaches, including my martial arts coach when I was a young man, who was a 4th degree black belt, they all said, because I was fortunate to have only really top-notch coaches, and they all said, you are only as good as your opponent. Don't fight weaklings. Don't fight people you can beat easily, or you will never actually develop your skills. You need to seek the toughest, most challenging opponents you can. At the same time, don't go so far above your head you just get slaughtered, because you won't learn anything from that except how to recover from a concussion. And when I was a fighter on the Army boxing team, the way they did that for us is they made us spar 3 weight classes down and 3 weight classes up. So when you're fighting a lightweight, it's like getting hit by a storm of punches that are coming at you so fast you can't even see them. But when you're fighting with a light heavyweight, any one of those punches, even in the guts, can knock you out. And I've watched people get knocked out cold by punches to the solar plexus. I've literally watched it happen. And so what we're doing with technology is we're trying to make our lives easier and easier and easier. So it's doing your thinking for you. It's taking the garbage out. It's washing the dishes. It's doing your math. It's balancing your checkbook. So what we're doing is we're actually removing the natural resistance to growth and development. And then what happens when the batteries run out? What happens when the power goes out? You're fucked. You have no internal skills. You don't know north,
Siri,
south.
turn the power back on. Why is it not working?
Exactly. And so if we don't engage life at the level of life, life is an analog process. Life is an outcropping of and an expression of nature, which is God's body. Yeah. And if we don't engage life at the analog level, that we wear as a body, and that we eat as food, and that we breathe as air, and that we water in our garden, and that we harvest, then what happens is we start living in an illusory digital reality. And as I did a video called The Danger of Living in Two Realities, where I talked about the difference between the analog and the digital reality. And I gave the analogy, look, you can have a tree on your phone, and it can be part of a garden that you have on your phone. But if you forget to water it, nothing happens. It doesn't matter how good the soil is.
The grass always stays green.
It'll never have a parasite infection. And any bird that lives in it will never be hunted by another bird or a cat. But the tree in your backyard, it'll die. Your cats and dogs and your houseplants will die if you don't tend to them, because they live in the same reality you do. So this is my way of saying, you're asking, what happens when we have a world full of kids with digital friends? These friends don't live in reality. Friends challenge you when you say something they don't believe.
If you have listened to even one episode of Paul's podcast before, then you will know that he is passionate, and some would say even fanatical, about the quality of the food he eats and where it is sourced from. That is why the Chek household only eats pasture-raised meat, wild-caught fish, and organic produce. And that is why we subscribe to Wild Pastures meat delivery service. Each month, Wild Pastures delivers a box of meat that has been raised by family farmers in the USA using regenerative farming practices. 100% grass-fed and finished beef, pasture-raised chicken, and pasture-raised pork, as well as wild-caught seafood. You can customize the selection in your box, add on extra when you know you will be feeding more people, or change your options each and every month. You might be thinking that this will be too expensive for you, but Wild Pastures' mission is to offer the highest quality meat at the lowest prices, because they want to transform the meat industry. And that means that more people need to be able to choose meat that is raised right. Their pasture-raised animals are part of a natural ecosystem. Their farmers use rotational grazing, practices that mimic nature, and so do not need to use synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, hormones, or antibiotics. This beautiful process doesn't require the external resources, such as massive amounts of GMO grain, required with environmentally depleting conventional methods. And best of all, the meat and fish taste amazing. And for Paul's listeners, Wild Pastures are offering you 20% off your subscription for life, $15 off your first order, and free shipping. Seriously, you can't find a better deal for top quality pasture-raised meat. Go to wildpastures.com/Paul Chek. You don't need a promo code. Just visit wildpastures.com/Paul Chek and start choosing the goodies you will have delivered to you in your first box.
Yeah, they don't constantly glaze you, say that you look wonderful, that you're always right, that you have all the answers, et cetera, et cetera. This is why I think the thesis of the book, as you know, Paul, is summed up that as our machines become more and more intelligent, which is happening every second, every moment, every day, that is happening. And it's interesting. I've had some podcast hosts ask me, well, can we stop it? No, I mean, that's not how human evolution works. It's not how this is going to roll out. Even if all the, I'm saying, quote unquote, good guys were to stop AI development, there are going to be bad guys, quote unquote, in the world that continue it. So the march moves on. And as our machines become more and more intelligent, our work as humans is to become more wise.
Totally.
And I think you just beautifully laid the thesis of my book out there, Paul. Like, and this is one example. We have to become more wise. We have to appreciate the beauty of embodied existence. AI doesn't have a body. In fact, it kind of wants a body. It's kind of an intelligence without a soul or a body. It's seeking that out, maybe, or it will seek that out. We have that. We are embodied, and there is magic in our bodies. You probably remember from the book, I talk about 3 universal teachers.
Yeah, I have that to talk about in here.
Yeah. I mean, we can follow the outline as close as you want, or whatever about the outline, however you feel.
Well, the thing for me is that some of these things I think are worth a more careful, constructed look into, which is why I put them in the outline, because there's some things I've brought up in regard to exactly that comment, by the way. So we can dive into that when we get to. But I want to expand on something that you said earlier, which is essentially what happens when AI starts becoming the teachers and the parents of everybody. Yeah. And I will maybe remind you and the audience of something that they may or may not have studied. But I'm sure you're familiar with the fact that there are now I've read at least 6 cases of human beings that somehow got segregated from their tribe or from their people and ended up being raised by wolves and animals.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, one of the things that has been, because I've got entire books on this in my library, one of the things that they found is these human beings could not develop past their instinctual intelligence. So they acted like wolves. Their instincts were wolf-like. They hunted. One of them was, I think, 8 years old when they found it. It could literally run down rabbits and kill them, and it would eat them raw. It would rip them open and eat them just like a wolf. But it had no interpersonal skills, no way to communicate. It even made sounds like a wolf. It had learned to be a wolf. So only with human interaction can a child become a human being. And if you raise a child with a wolf, it becomes a wolf. Point being is if you raise children with AI, they become machines.
Yeah.
They don't become humans. They become some kind of a manifestation of a technology. And Steiner speaks very extensively about the electronic doppelganger, and he talks about the incarnation of Ahriman. And I think, Jeff, you would really find episode 250 on my podcast quite fascinating. It was a special event that I did to address these issues. And it's Spirit Gem episode 250, Lucifer, Christ, Ahriman. And I clearly laid out Steiner's conception of Lucifer, Ahriman, and how Christ is the balancing force between these two forces of consciousness. You could call Ahriman an expression of yin, Lucifer an expression of yang, and Christ as the equivalent of the Tao or the balancing point, the Buddha love, the unconditional love, the nature of the true heart that has to hold these forces together so that they don't create destruction beyond the point at which God itself cannot evolve through its own being. And so I think I don't have time to go through the whole Lucifer, Christ, Ahriman thing. It's very deep and profound, and I quote many.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, I give many of the warnings about Steiner. But the thing I wanted to bring up is Steiner said that human beings have to go through this encounter with Ahriman. Ahriman's the god of automation, the god of technology, the god of materialism, and the god of control. And that Ahriman wants to take over the entire planet, and that we will potentially become, shall we say, beings within which it expresses itself, but it is not interested in our freedom or anything but using us and using the earth for its own embodiment. But what Steiner said is that human beings have to go through this, because ultimately what they're going to realize is that what we are and what God is and what true spirituality is not material, and that we will reach rock bottom with the materialistic agenda, and then we will turn around and step fully into our own spiritual evolution, because we will know for sure what spiritual evolution isn't. So I really feel that that's an important thing we've all got to realize. The question is, how far into that rabbit hole do we want to go as individuals? And those of us like you and I that are aware, and many others are out of the goodness of our heart, have to step forward and at least offer some common sense and some grounding and some nurture.
Amen. And my question to posit to you, Paul, or the thought in the book would be, or the feeling I've had in my heart as I wrote this book is, how can we do this more beautifully this time around, if you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In other words, if this is the endless puzzle, the cosmic puzzle that we're solving, I talk about in the end of the book about putting Humpty Dumpty back together again, which is obviously, to put it in a Christian context, kind of the body of Christ, like you mentioned, coming back together in all its parts, in all its love. And if we do have to go through this, again, crucible, I'll say, how can we do it better this time with less destruction, maybe less hate, more love, more peace, more beauty? I think that this is the endless cycle of existence. It's one of death, life, death, and rebirth. It is alive and well right now. The archetypes are here, the archetypal setting is here for us to step into. And how will we do it? How will we do it this time? And will we destroy ourselves in the process? Will we allow ourselves to flourish and grow? And or when I'm talking about ourselves, you could also say God. Will we allow God to grow and become more aware and more full of love, let's say? Yes. That's the process that AI is taking us through. And it's an exciting time. And I don't think enough people are talking about it like this. They're talking about efficient optimization, making money, power, control. Obviously, it will be used for all of those bad things, but we need more people to rise up, to stand up, and to lean into the good parts of where AI can take us. And that's what this book is. It's a call to those people, like you mentioned. Well, hopefully enough people are listening, Paul. Are people listening? I don't know.
I think they are. I know they're listening to my podcast because it continues to grow. My podcast is often cited as the deepest podcast there is, because I get deep into these issues, and I'm not doing, short attention span infomercials for shit. It's like, let's look honestly into these things. My Lucifer, Christ, Ahriman is 5 hours long. Took me 1 month to write the script and record it. I took a month off because it was so important to me that people to understand this. And paradoxically, it was my most listened to episode in 2023 by far.
Wow. Yeah.
So
I'm gonna check it out.
There's a sign, but there's a couple of things I want to share. My answer to your question: how do we get through this? How do we do this? It's very, very simple.
It's simple but hard to do. Go ahead.
Well, I'll tell you my take on it. I'm quite confident you're going to agree. And it's simple, but it's not hard to do when you find yourself mystified, when you find yourself confused, when you find yourself in pain, when you find yourself realizing that your ego is not a very good tour guide in life. And the answer is simply this: use your heart to feel what you know.
Yeah.
Not your head.
Amen.
Use your heart to feel what you know.
Yeah, we've gotten away from that.
Only the heart can deliver justice to the head. Hi, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the show. I imagine you know that magnesium is one of the minerals that people in North America are the most deficient in, but it's an extremely important mineral to have in your diet regularly. And believe it or not, Bioptimizers has improved what was already well known to be the best magnesium formula out there, called Magnesium Breakthrough. So I've got Wade Lightheart with me to explain what it is they've done to improve this already excellent formula. Wade, what is new about your new Mag Breakthrough formula?
Well, it's called sucrosomial magnesium. So we have 7 different types of magnesium in Magnesium Breakthrough because they're uptaken by different parts of the body. But a new type of magnesium has been created called sucrosomial. And what it shows in the research and science is that it's actually even more absorbable by the body, particularly inside of the brain, which is a big aspect to enhance neurotransmitter formation, as well as ensuring the rest and relax response in the nervous system that a lot of people will take magnesium for. They find it, clocks them down, helps them sleep better, allows for the relaxation of striated and smooth muscle tissue in the body, which creates an energetic relief. And so when we added sucrosomial, we were able to demonstrate inside our lab facility that we were able to get better improvements. Of course, we have a partnership with Birch International University. We have some patents we're working on, which will kind of relay some of these things. But sucrosomial was a no-brainer when we added to the formula, improved the results or improved the uptake. And the reports back from our testing team were like, wow, we get more results with less caps. And that's always the goal for our company.
That's excellent. I love it. I always say, and people have probably heard me say it before, I'm so amazed how you guys are constantly and always improving and working your best to not only make better products for us, but it doesn't seem to me that it gets more expensive as you make them better. So that's a real gift to the world. Thank you.
Spirit Gym with Paul Chek listeners can get 10% off their purchase of Magnesium Breakthrough by going to bioptimizers.com/Spirit Gym and use the code PAUL10 at checkout. You can choose from the Magnesium Breakthrough capsules or the new Magnesium Breakthrough drink powder, available in 4 delicious fruit flavors or unflavored. Bioptimizers always have great bonus gifts and additional savings when you get multiple bottles. So go to bioptimizers.com/Spirit Gym and check out Magnesium Breakthrough.
Yeah, amen. I mean, we've gotten away from that. That's why our body is a universal teacher. We all have these physical bodies, and we've gotten away from it in our modern age. And obviously, we're in danger of becoming even less and less embodied. And there could be a segment of the population that does become almost disembodied, where they live their life in this digital world.
It's the Matrix right there.
It is the Matrix. But I think we need to fight for humanity. I think we need to fight for the beauty. I think we're going to, in this hyper optimized world, I think we'll realize, oh shit, the beauty is in the mess. The beauty is in the work.
It's the process.
The beauty is in the process. Yeah, like there isn't some necessary destination that we're all heading to. It's in the process of transformation and evolution where we grow, we find our beauty, God, quote unquote, emerges or wakes up to itself, however you want to explain it. And I think that we'll be turned back to that here in really interesting ways. Again, my bet, my hope, I'm kind of career pivoting from this finance, tech entrepreneur guy to this hippie artist, author, person. And I'm sharing these thoughts because this is what I'm going to spend the rest of my career on. Like, I just am so committed to this process of evolution that we're in and trying to be a voice like yours, Paul, in the world, in the wilderness, a voice of reason and remembrance.
Yes.
I hope that when people pick up this book, it feels familiar to them. It should feel familiar in some sort, form, and sense, and that's good. That's the familiarity we can grow. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, when I was reading through your book, it was like the return of a friend named Common Sense that's long been lost. It's like, okay, finally someone's writing a book with his head on straight and his heart holding his pen instead of AI holding the pen. But you know, you say something right in the title of your book, Becoming Wise in the Age of AI. But I will share something that we need to look at, and that is, you cannot develop wisdom without experience. And experience is the result of making mistakes and refining and making mistakes and refining, which is why Hegel's thesis, antithesis, synthesis, philosophy is so very, very real. You come up with a great idea, AI, that's the thesis. Then you come into the challenges of it, the antithesis, and say, okay, you know, is this really doing what we wanted it to do? And is it working? And how do we make it work so that it is pro-life and pro-morality, which is life affirmative? And then we go into synthesis and say, okay, now that we've become wise through these challenges, then we have now got something that can help us evolve as an ally, as opposed to a bomb in the kitchen, so to speak. So I think we're in that antithesis process. We're kind of just coming out of the thesis phase into the antithesis phase. And I think that research study showing that it's making young people stupider is a report card from reality. And, and I think so is the truth. You know, I'm sure you probably saw the documentary Social Dilemma, where they interviewed the creators of social media, and one of them said, we let a dragon out of the bottle and we don't know how to get it back in. And so we just let another dragon out of the bottle, except it takes the first dragon and puts it on steroids is the problem. And so ultimately, while this is happening, we're noticing a rapid escalation of anxiety, depression, suicide, chronic health issues. Recent reports now as high as 60% of the average American's diet is ultra-processed foods, 50 to 60%. We've got an epidemic of obesity. We've got an epidemic of cancer. We've got an epidemic of pretty much every chronic ailment that you can see. All of that is a result of trying to take shortcuts. And we have a whole field of biohacking, which is, how can I get the optimal performance out of myself without having to do the work of being a healthy person? And I say, take the word biohacking and get rid of it, because anytime you use the word hacking with a human body or a mind and you're in trouble, we need to bioharmonize, and we need official intelligence, which is inside of you. And so I think these are key things that we all have to not only hear about, but engage in. And it won't matter, because, you know, the function of evil is to uphold the good. And so each of us has our own threshold where we finally say, okay, enough of that. I know that tool only can take you so far, right? There's only so many diet books. There's only so many shortcuts. And finally, you either wake up or you end up dying. And that's the two choices.
Yeah. And I think my big answer to that statement, Paul, in the book is being versus doing. I tell a story in the book. This is pretty funny. I'm running a multi-billion-dollar private equity firm. I'm investing $100 million in venture capital. I'm on 20 boards, 4 in nonprofit. I'm a young father of 4. I'm a bishop in my church. I mean, and for some reason, I decide to add MBA to my resume. So I go back. I mean, it's crazy. What was I thinking? Literally, it is laughable. I look back and I'm like, what in the hell was I thinking? But I know exactly what I was thinking. I thought you could always be more, or you could always do more, to be more. So I'm sitting, you may remember, I'm sitting in my MBA class. Let me tell this story real quick. Sitting in my MBA class, my professor says, give me the 2 most motivating things to you right now in your life, think of the two most exciting possibilities. And I'm starting to lick my chops because I've always been a big dreamer and I'm excited. I saw nothing, Paul.
Yeah.
Flat, blank, and empty. I continue to work on it. My colleagues in the room start typing. I had nothing. Finally, two visions come to my mind, neither of which I'm proud of. The second of which sent me to my first therapist in my adult life. And the first one was this wild party scene. Being a product of the 80s and 90s, I say it's like a badass Cribs episode mashed up with Yo MTV Raps, like little, beautiful people, little to no clothing, illicit substances. By the way, as an observant Mormon, I had never tasted coffee or tea, let alone any drugs or alcohol. But that's where my mind went. I was seeking freedom. The second thing, which was even more scary, I had a vision in my mind. I picked up my laptop from my desk, quietly put it in my bag, and drove to the Salt Lake City airport 15 minutes down the road and bought a one-way ticket to the furthest place imaginable, basically just disappearing. So those were the only two things in my addiction to doing that I felt like could satiate this feeling of freedom or getting away. Here's my point. My point is to say that as our machines become better and better at some of the monotonous doing that we have done for so long, I think that it's an opportunity for us, Paul, or a lot more of us, to lean into our being. We are human beings, not human doings. And so this antithesis, the synthesis, like the outline that you presented a minute ago, to me, the overarching answer to this is lean into your being. There will always be enough to do. We'll podcast, we'll write books, we'll eat, we'll, all the things that we have to do. But how much being are we really bringing to everything that we do? If we can sit in stillness, I'm talking as the human race. I think of Blake Pascal's quote that like all of men's problems can come down to not being able to sit in a room quietly with himself.
Right.
That might be a quote about God. That might be a quote, not to get too existential or heady, but maybe that's the beginning of this whole experiment. And we're trying to come back to a peace with our being. It's not about doing. I climbed my little mountain of success. I outline it a little bit in the book. And I say that when I got to the top, there was nothing but a cold, howling wind. Only
this
void.
is why Joseph Campbell says most people spend their life climbing the corporate ladder only to get to the top and realize it's leaning against the wrong wall.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's that. But we see we're climbing that ladder together, and there is individuals that realize it's against the wrong wall, but eventually we're going to collectively realize that it's against the wrong wall.
When's that going to happen, Paul? Let's help it happen.
That's the race.
Is the race.
The question is, what are we going to do first? Destroy the wall or realize it's the wrong wall?
Yeah.
And that's part of the journey too. I mean, the Bhagavad Gita is a very good story of the fact that the soul is immortal and that we go through these stages of development, self-realization, and there's your experience leading to wisdom. Nobody becomes a true sage by letting AI take examinations for it and go through the trials and the hardships that make a sage. And so we have to do that together. But, one of the things that came to me as you were talking is that what AI is ultimately going to give us a chance to do is to focus on our unique creative genius, because
Amen. Yeah.
AI is just copying us.
When Paul started presenting his Flatten Your Abs Forever seminar at events over 20 years ago, I still remember how shocked people were to learn that flat abs had more to do with posture, breathing, and digestion than endless crunches and ab exercises. The response was amazing, and I typically had people coming up to me after a presentation and saying, I've been training for years, but no one ever explained the body like this. It's moments like this that show how powerful the Chek approach is. When you start looking at the body as one complete system, everything changes. Now, the Chek Institute has launched an all-new version of Flatten Your Abs Forever, a complete video program that walks you step by step through the process of building strong, flat, and functional abs the right way. It uses Paul's proven system that's helped thousands of people transform their health from the inside out. And right now, you can claim the brand new Flatten Your Abs Forever bundle for free when you sign up at chek.group/flatabs. You can also find this link in the show notes. Along with the new video program, you'll also get 3 incredible bonuses from Paul and the Chek Institute. The Last 4 Doctors You'll Ever Need ebook, a clear, practical guide to achieving lasting health, the Big Bang Workout, a time-saving routine packed with Paul's most effective exercises, and the Gut Health Reset video, your step-by-step plan to support healthy digestion and flatten your midsection naturally. That's a value of $99, and those 3 bonuses are yours free when you sign up for the Flatten Your Abs Forever bundle. It's a limited time offer, so just head to chek.group/flatabs and claim yours today. I've seen firsthand how this information can change lives. If you've been chasing results that never seem to last, this is where it starts, with real knowledge, a proven system, and the guidance of Paul and the Chek Institute.
Yes. It's a cosmic mirror. It's a reflection of all of our data, how we interact with it. And so absolutely, it's a mirror and a reflection back to us. Every person has a beautiful piece of art in them. Everyone has a book, whatever may speak to them. And this hopefully will free up time for more people to lean into their artistry and to, share it with the world. Keep going. I totally agree.
Yeah, well, you see, I don't know if it was that first study that came out showing the results of AI on young people or somewhere else that I read it, but one of the things that was said by a university professor is that they can easily tell when examinations are written by AI versus an actual human, because the AI tends to be too monochromatic, almost too perfect.
Flat. Yeah, too perfect, too flat.
There's no humanness in it. And I think it's the same. I've seen a lot of AI art, and to the untrained eye, it looks really beautiful, but I'm an art therapist. You can see my wall back there covered in my own art. I teach art. I run art workshops. I run mandala workshops. I help people heal with art. And I've studied art therapy extensively and practice it for myself and with others for many, many years. And the reason that I'm bringing that up is because I'll give you an example. I was preparing a group of my mastery students for sort of the graduation of their ceremony, which was a legitimate shamanic journey. And so I use art. I have them create a mandala to support their invocation. And as the leader of the journey, I analyze their art so I know whether or not they're ready for that type of ceremony, and if I need to make a change in the sacrament so that it's not destructive to them, but supportive to them. And one of the students said, well, my art's not very good, so I used AI to do my mandala. And so here I had a group of 7 people, and I said, well, look, there's not time for you, because by the time I got the mandala from him, it was very late in the process. There's not time for you to redo it. And here's the reasons I didn't want you to do that. I wish you would have asked me first. But when we sat down to begin the ceremonial process, which is a 3-day process, because I do a day of preparation to get them ready and to clear them and harmonize them and teach them how to manage their mind in the ceremony so that they don't get lost. And we had all the art up. And when you're standing there looking at all these mandalas, and there's 6 of them painted by hand, often for the first time to do art, and then there's an AI one. And the way I could best describe it is you were looking at 6 human beings in a magazine cover.
Yeah.
Right? You're looking at
it's flat.
A magazine cover.
Yes.
Now, the reason I allowed him to use it is because the symbology that he chose to put into the art was a good reflection of the inner process that he was going through. So from a archetypal perspective, it would do what it needed to do. But interestingly, he turned out to be the one that had the hardest time in ceremony. And I think, for many other reasons, but that was just sort of a mirror of him working through himself.
Yeah.
And one of the themes was you can't push water uphill. You can't do things too quickly. You can't rush an orange tree. You can't plant a sapling and then get pissed off at it 6 months later because it's not popping with oranges. You have to let it mature. You can't rush a child into being an adult or you damage the child. And so I think part of the problem is that people keep wanting to do everything without engaging the process. In other words, do your own art and celebrate it no matter what it looks like, and know that with practice it gets better. Don't resort to AI to do your art for you, or you haven't developed anything in yourself. You haven't gone through the experience of cultivating wisdom. And if we don't work on developing mastery in one area of our lives, it's almost impossible to develop it in any other area of our lives. And mastery takes work.
It does.
There's no escaping it.
And I think we may go through a season here in humanity. A lot of tech leaders have said, we may kind of go through a period of dystopia here, but then it's going to be utopia. I don't know, and I'm not here to necessarily opine on that, but I wouldn't be surprised, Paul, if there was a decade of a lot of glossy, magazine covers. Mm-hmm. But then we come back to the human realness in that. Again, I don't know how long this process is going to take, but I think that AI, the digitization of everything, the machine-like quality that lacks soul, people are going to repel that. They're going to get sick of it. They're going to recognize it. That will then return us back to ourselves and hopefully give us some additional wisdom to sit in stillness and come back to ourselves. This is the process of evolution. It's a messy process. No one knows the time frame exactly, but I just don't think, and this is maybe just my hope, I don't think humans will go for that long term, Paul. I just don't think that's what we're built for. And I think that we'll reject that over time. But there's going to be a season certainly where AI does a lot of homework. AI does a lot of art, does a lot of movies. But when in that artificiality, it's like a call back to ourselves. It's a call back to what is real, to our underlying reality as a divine living entity or being or consciousness itself. I think it returns us back to that. I think this is the messy process of returning to that. And it's going to be a beautiful one. No one knows the twists and turns. I mean, what's the fun in having all the answers to the game before you start the game?
That's what makes a journey. That's what makes a journey a journey. I mean, that's why we go river rafting and rock climbing and riding in the rodeo. And I was a motocross racer. No one could tell you what the outcome was. You don't even know if you're going to make it through the first corner, for God's sakes.
Well, and you're definitely you think during that motocross race at a couple points, I'm going to die. I'm not going to make it. I think we're going to have that experience. Humanity's going to have that experience. We're not going to make it. We're about to be, but I think we will make it. I think we'll come back to ourselves. At least this is my bet and what I'm working towards.
I was in the 82nd Airborne Division. You know what that is?
Yeah.
I was a paratrooper. You know what thought went through my mind every jump? I hope the fucking guy that packed my chute wasn't stoned, because this will be my last jump.
Exactly.
What's the point? No matter how many times you jump out of an airplane, you never know what the outcome is. You just have to trust God, and there's got to be some go for it. But I think our saving grace, I'll put it very simply as an analogy. AI to me is white bread or puffed wheat. No matter how much of you eat, you're always hungry. Yeah. And I don't think AI will ever satiate the soul. And I think something inside of us, our innate inner wisdom, the genius within each of us, will say, I can do better than that myself.
Yeah. Well, the universe, I think, is a divinely organized system.
Of course it is. Otherwise,
yeah.
How did it get here?
Exactly. But I guess what I'm saying is not enough people appreciate that. They don't understand the intricacy of the system. It doesn't necessarily need our participation, any one of us, but it wants our participation. And so I think the universe is setting us up here beautifully for a heroic journey and for a hopefully a quote unquote victory, whatever that means, at the end. It's working with and through us. I mean, do you feel the world kind of waking up, Paul? I mean, you've done this for 41 years. What has been the change from 40? I'm 48, so I was 7 years old. From the last 41 years, it's unbelievable the awakening that we see, even almost, I feel like, on a daily basis in myself, but also in others. And so the process is working. It's happening. We just need to be aware of it. We need to accelerate it where it's wise. And we need to make sure that the technology that we're creating, the tools that we're creating, AI especially, but others as well, are focused on what the reality of who we are and what reality is. I think most existential pain can be boiled down to a reluctance to accept or understand who we really are and what reality is. I mean, that's where pain comes from.
Exactly. And there's a contemplative meditation that I did. What is reality? I've got like 12 books in my library on that question, written by very, very astute, highly evolved, elite scientists and philosophers and thinkers. And I've studied it extensively, but nobody can agree on what reality is. So when Steiner says, whenever you have opposing opinions by equally qualified experts, that's when you ask the question, is it really to, and do your own work? So I went into contemplative meditation and I asked my soul, I need you to help me define reality for myself and for everybody else so that people know what reality is. And my soul said, there's two important definitions of reality that you need to always keep in the forefront of your mind. Here they are. Reality is what's happening right now.
Yeah. The
always.
Ever-present now.
That's what reality is.
Now. Yeah. There's right. Real quick, can I just say something on this? The past is the past, and too much of us ruminate on the past and tear ourselves down, greed or grief, shame. Yeah. And then the future is a fiction. The future does not exist.
Yes.
It only exists as we get there in the present moment. This, you could say, is the life of God, the life of every present moment. And the future only comes to us in the present moment, a never-ending cycle, you could say, of present moments. Sorry, keep going. Yes, love that.
There's two ways I warn my patients about how they're creating problems in their life based on the now. I say pasteurizing yourself, which is a metaphor for cooking something till it's dead, is what happens. And it's, as you know, the old saying, don't drive with your eyes in the rearview mirror because you're going to crash. So that's what happens when people keep pasteurizing themselves, living out of the past. And then futurizing themselves, which is living for a moment that hasn't arrived, which at the expense of what's happening in the present. And anything meaningful that you want to have in the future requires that you participate in creating it right now.
It can only happen if you're in the present moment. And this is why our being is so critical in this day and age. And I think that there's a return to being. It's why we need to return to our being. It's why we need to bring our whole selves, our best selves to everything you do. Paul, I viewed this book as my little offering to the divine, like my little piece of art. I really view it as a piece of art. I don't know if others will. That's in the future. And by the way, that's not up to me. My job was to put my whole heart and soul into this book. I'm a first-time author. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I will say that I put my whole heart and soul into it. So I'm only talking about that to say it was a great metaphor for me for not looking into the future, not projecting how people are going to react to it. Am I going to be on bestseller lists? Am I going to talk to Paul? Am I going to talk to Oprah? Am I going to talk to no one? I'm making stuff up. That's not my business. It's almost not my business. My business is to put my whole heart and soul, my best effort into the process, into what I'm doing now in creating this book or whatever you're doing. Yeah.
That's called the healthy practice of detachment, which is extremely important. And it is an act of being, to be and to not project or to put qualifiers on, to give birth to your baby and let it go out into the world and keep filling it with your love. And that's what this podcast is all about is we're growing wings for the message and so it can land where it's meant to land. Trying to make something perfect is a dead end road that leads to a lot of pain and destruction even to begin with. It's one of the 4 primary causes of addiction, perfectionism. So the second definition of reality my soul gave me is everything your life depends upon. It depends on the earth. It depends on the water. It depends on the fire and the sun, the warmth of metabolism, and it depends on the air, and it depends on relationships, and it depends on caring for each other and caring for the planet. So reality is everything your life depends on. And when AI and social media and anything takes you away from the responsibilities that are inherent in love, then you invite the pain teacher.
Yeah.
And the pain teacher comes to quicken consciousness. And if you don't take care of your dog, it dies, and the pain teacher shows up because you got a broken heart. If you don't, look, I grew up on a farm. Being raised on a farm is a real introduction to reality. My father's rule was you feed and water the animals before you eat or drink, because if I ever catch you putting the animals second, you will never, ever forget it. And he meant it. And what he was saying is our life depends upon these animals and these crops. So get clear. And so my father taught me what reality was without saying it in that way. Yeah. And so when we are in a situation where we're investing so much time, energy, money, and resources into things that don't support what supports our life, we are running into the kind of catastrophe that destroys a farm and a farmer's ability to exist.
Yeah, and can obviously definitely destroy a culture and destroy humanity, right? I mean, I don't think the outcome is decided here.
It's doing it now. We're watching it.
We are deciding the outcome as we go in every present moment, you could say. And
we are in the 6th mass extinction. It's well documented. The question is, do you want to be a statistic or do you want to say, I lived through that?
Exactly. And yeah, I think that, this real and persisting pandemic of our time is this lack of awareness, this addiction to doing. We are not in our being. I think if we can return to our being, we can return to stillness. Yes. We can hear the earth. We can hear the divinity within each of us. And we can get back to working on what we're really here to work on, or,
which is love.
Which is love, period.
End of story.
Yeah, end of story. And that's an exciting proposition. So I'm trying my damnedest, if you can't tell, Paul, to be like optimistic and hopeful, because I don't know what good it is to be pessimistic or to be, that leads to cynicism and nihilism. It can really quickly. I've traveled those roads some. I'm sure you have.
Sure, I have to deal with patients that have these problems all the time.
Yeah, but those aren't pretty roads to travel. Those aren't. Those don't lead to anything probably good in the end. And so,
if you get the right therapist, they can lead to wisdom.
Yeah, that's true.
They can lead to rebirth.
Well, pain can always take us there. And I think that is the era we are entering, an era of pain here in a highly digitized world with intelligent machines where humans have to really grapple with our shit. We have to get our stuff together or else,
And it's a unique kind of pain, Jeff. it's not the pain of crashing a car. It's not the pain of cutting yourself. It's not the pain of realizing somebody you thought loved you doesn't love you. It's an even more profound and insidious kind of pain called emptiness.
Yeah.
It's called emptiness.
Yeah.
It's the emptiness of passing your university exams with flying colors, knowing that you didn't actually do it.
Yeah.
It's the emptiness of knowing you won when you cheated and no one else knows you cheated.
Yeah.
It's the
It's
emptiness.
an emptiness of your best friend being a robot, being a machine.
It's the
being
emptiness
hollow.
it's the emptiness of being rich when you stole someone else's money and you
Yeah.
justified it like a pirate.
Yeah.
Right? That's the emptiness. It's the emptiness of achieving without achieving and creating without creating. And that is to impersonate being human. And I think that we've talked a lot about being, but we haven't talked about how to practice being. And I think that's an important thing to put on the table. And the way that I teach my students and the way I practice myself is very simple. You just use two words and you couple it with whatever you're doing. When I'm painting, I use the words, I am painting. When I'm playing with my kids, I use the words, I am playing with my kids. When I'm having a shower, I am having a shower. The words I am are a statement of being.
Yeah.
And
The
I
ultimate
think
being, right?
all
I
you've
mean,
got to do is just start making a statement inside of yourself. I am washing the dishes. I am making love to my partner. I am caring for my animals or my dogs or my pets or my house plants. Because then you realize that you're actually present in the process and you're here.
Yeah.
You're not faking anything. You know, you
Yeah,
can
and-
even say, I am using AI, and then you at least know who's using it.
Yeah.
I think
like
that's
that
a very
simple
important
practice. I think that's
Yeah.
a great practice. And I think it applies to, you know, you've mentioned so many times the three universal teachers that I talk about the body. I mean, it's impossible to be embodied if you're not present washing the dishes.
Right.
If you're not present when you're making love, let's say, like you can't really feel the richness of those experiences unless I'm just going to say, I am, unless
Right.
you are there doing
Yeah.
it. And obviously, you know, the other two universal teachers are what you've mentioned, real relationship, human
Yep.
relationship. You know, too often we let challenges in our family, in our background. There are reasons, obviously, abusive reasons to leave or to do something different. But our family isn't in the way. They often are the way. Those human relationships that are hard for us, that create transformation, that is our way. We just need to lean into it. And then connecting with nature. I mean, nature is, as you know, as a farmer, even better than me, it is modeling the reality of existence always. This never-ending process of life, death, rebirth.
Yeah.
I mean, it does that every day. It does that with the breath in our bodies, number one. It does that every day. It does that every season. And so connecting to these three universal teachers that are all like grounded in reality, I think are more critical than ever in an age of highly intelligent machines. I hope we have the wisdom and the strength to do it as humans.
I think when I saw your three teachers, what it made me want to share with you is that the body's important, but what's even more important is realizing that we are in possession of a body. If I say, Jeff, hold your hand up and tell me what you're looking at, you're going to say my hand.
Mm-hmm.
If I say whose body is it, you're going to say it's my body. So there's obviously a soul in there that has possession of the body. It's using it as a vehicle of expression, a vehicle of experience. Some call it an avatar. But I think the body is a living mirror that shows us the outcome of the choices that we're making. If we choose to be happy, the body shows us happiness. If we choose to not pay attention to what we eat, the body shows us with changes that are negative. If we choose to
disease,
disease, if we choose to, I teach 4 doctors: Dr. Happiness, Dr. Movement, Dr. Diet, and Dr. Quiet. Those are the only 4 doctors you'll ever need if you engage them. What am I willing to do that's happy making for me, and take responsibility for doing it? How much movement do I need to keep healthy and have the fitness to live the dream I came to live? How do I eat in a way that's unique for my individual needs, but also supports the planet and the farmers that care for the planet? How much rest do I need to regenerate myself? And how much time do I need for honest self-introspection so that I'm not bullshitting myself through life, and I can look at where I made mistakes and how I can do better tomorrow? And there's your 3 functions of the soul. The abiding is God within you as the witness. The reflection is, how can I do better based on yesterday or today? And how can I represent myself as someone that's more dream affirmative, love affirmative, and life affirmative? And that's the function of a soul. That's the way God itself evolves. In my Spirit Gym training program, I say there's 3 things about God you must always be conscious of for a legitimate spiritual path. What am I doing as God? What am I doing with God? And what am I doing for God? If you ask yourself those 3 questions every day, a God has the power to change its environment for better or worse. So what are you doing as God means, what are you doing to support creating an environment that is life affirmative and sacred?
Yeah.
What am I doing with God? Well, if you know that God is unconditional love, then we can grow into expressing ourselves in more empathetic and compassionate ways. And that's the long journey home. And then what am I doing for God? If you realize there's nothing here but God, and that God, as Rumi says, sleeps in the minerals, dreams in the plants, moves in the animals, and realizes itself in man, then we can say those that are less awake than us, that's the part of God that needs our nurture, that needs our love, our support, our wisdom, and our guidance. Yeah. So I think all of us in the age of AI need to ask the question, what am I doing as God, with God, and for God? And to the degree that we recognize others getting lost in technology, social media, drugs, whatever it is, we see God needing help. That's why I do this podcast.
Yeah, and our first experiment with general use AI, I would say, is social media. I call it, baby AI.
It is
the almighty algorithm. And my point is to say, Paul, what does it cause? Like you said, depression and massive division. When I ran for governor, I was shocked to go to community after community where feelings were heightened, neighbors were at each other's throats, when really they shared a lot more in common than they do different. So I think the underlying message is to remember that whenever we're with another human being, we are, quote unquote, with God. We are with ourselves. And therefore, we're on sacred ground.
That is being
with them. And in that being, that is transformative for people. People really just want to be seen. They want to love and be loved. So we can be heard. And so we can bring that love to other people, even when they disagree with us, even when, there are going to be some very close people in my life that don't appreciate this book, Paul, that don't like it because I speak the truth. But I can still love them, right? Like I can still lean into that love and I can still accept them where they are. I think, like you said, that is our calling.
My tip for you would be to say, anybody in your family, please do me a favor. Don't not like me or make a judgment until you finish reading it.
Yeah, I've done that. I've also said, please do me a favor to a couple of them, just don't read it. Jeff, will you send me a copy? No, you're going to have to order it on your own. And I encourage you not to order it. Could you feel the love in the pages, Paul? I mean, I put my heart into it.
No,
but I also spoke the truth, and people
I'm
don't
not.
like the truth.
I'm not someone who selects people to be on this podcast willy nilly, my friend. There's a reason you're here right now, for sure. But I want to share something I learned as a motocross racer that's really appropriate for the world right now. I was a ranked motocross racer, and I really poured my heart and soul into it. And, you know, I wish I could have just done it for the rest of my life, but my soul knew that wasn't how to be Paul Chek in the world. But man, was it fun and dangerous. I got 6 bad concussions racing motocross. But one of my teachers, who was a very successful motocross racer when I was a young man, taught me something that's really important to share with people in the world right now. And so when you, like right now, we're kind of on a river rafting journey, and we're hitting some grade 5 rapids, right?
Yeah.
And I've done that too. And so what my motocross, this particular teacher said to me, he said, Paul, if there's one thing you want to remember when you're racing a motorcycle, never let go of the handlebars until you have to. He said, if you let go, there's nothing you can do. But if you hang on and stay focused, you'll be amazed at what you can pull yourself out of. And that he echoed through my mind many times, and I thought, okay, I'm dead now. And I just hung on, and by a miracle, I pulled it out. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't wipe out. I didn't kill myself, and I'm still in the fucking race. Yay. But I watch a lot of younger racers who don't have that kind of training, and their fear takes them over, and they let go too soon, and they end up a lot worse off usually than if they would have hung on and tried to stay in it, you know?
Yeah.
So my
that's a
message
great metaphor for life and for
yes, that's my
right
message. Don't let go of the handlebars, baby. Stay in until your freaking heart stops.
That's right. You got to stay until the bitter end, no matter where this takes us. I mean, obviously the heroic journey is one that calls for us to lean into, to open our hearts to, no matter, I talk about the old game and the new game in the book, but like the old game of like greed and control and power, that we could double, triple, quadruple down on that. But when you layer on the godlike technology that is AI, I think it becomes really hard to hold on to those handlebars. Like we've got to shift to a new game where, karma's the currency, authenticity is the motivation, and love is the reason. I mean, these are age-old things that we're talking about, Paul. Every master has tried to help us along the way, and they have in their own ways. But Earth
School never changes being Earth School. No matter how many generations you go back, there's always been Dungeons and Dragons and good guys and bad guys and lovers and haters and ... I mean, that Earth School is devoted to God's own self-realization, from a sleeping God dreaming in the minerals to realizing itself in man, and we're by no means the only one in the universe doing it. I'm a remote viewer. I can tell you, Alan Watts said something profound. He said the universe is a peopling universe, and he was bang on. And it doesn't mean
what did he say? A what universe?
Peopling.
Oh, a peopling universe, yeah.
In other words, God does nothing but create sentient beings everywhere to realize itself.
And we know how big the universe is. So
it's infinite.
It's infinite. It is, it's impossible to grasp. Yeah, this is interesting, this God waking up to itself. I think this is one of the things that we have to realize, that any state of being, I say kind of jokingly in the book, that even a cosmic orgasm gets old after 1 million or 1 billion years, or whatever your idea of the best thing is. It gets old. There has to be ups and downs. There has to be forgetting. I mean, that's where the saying, that's where the saying absence makes your heart grow fonder comes from, right? Yeah. And so, the question is, can we survive
a hero's journey of this intensity without enough wise elders on deck to guide it. And that's why it's important for everybody that has some real spiritual depth to step forward now and midwife this process, because, you know, we're going through a birth canal, and that, you know, it's a legitimate birth canal. We're actually being birthed into our humanity. And, you know,
we need people to step up, like you said, Paul. Like, this is my offering. The book is my offering to like step up. But what is yours? I'm asking your listeners, like, what is your offering? Because we do need more wise elders. We do need some more structure. We do need pattern breakers, as I say in the book, people that are willing to push past the edges and help humanity get comfortable with where we're headed and with change.
Yes. I think too, if we look at this, we could say, you know, many people say the world is so dark right now. There's so much evil in the world. But, you know, we always have to remember the function of evil is to show us what love is not. And so the more evil there is in the world, the more the finger points toward the moon. And the, you know, the old saying, don't look at the finger, look at the moon. So to the degree that you see tyrannical dictators doing destructive things, don't be one. To the degree that you see the earth being raped, don't rape it. To the degree that you see people getting lost in AI, then use AI intelligently. You know, the darkness needs the light, and even one candle can illuminate a very large room in the dark. In other words, each one of us can be a candle in the dark. And when enough of us get together and start holding hands, then our light magnifies. And you know, I learned something very profound many years ago in my remote viewing work. It came by way because I've done a lot of deep plant medicine ceremonies. I think I've conducted in the neighborhood of about 1,000 of them, but I've done a lot of deep research on myself to map out the different dimensions where people get into trouble, and for my own curiosity and exploration. And I wanted to compare the plant medicine path with the natural path, because I devoted myself to 18 years of daily Tai Chi, work with a master and things like that. But in a lot of these deep plant medicine ceremonies, you can end up in some pretty scary and you know, wild and interesting places. And so I always prepared for the ceremony with my soul, did a mandala, did my invocation, but I would say to my soul, I need you to guide me and give me instruction as to what to do, because I've ended up in dimensions with all sorts of strange and interesting extraterrestrial beings in other dimensions of lots of different types. And some of them are really scary. So I would always ask my soul to guide me. But I've also been in dimensions that were very dark, so dark that it was almost like you were just walking in jet black, but you could feel beings and entities around you. So I said to my soul, you know, I can't see. What do I do? And my soul said, open your heart and let the light of love illuminate your path. And so I learned to just open my heart chakra, and in the darkness, everything became illuminated. And I found that the light of love works in any dimension, in any time, space, or place. And it really taught me to refer back and put my consciousness back in my heart whenever I'm into something challenging to navigate or in a challenging relationship. And that's why I encourage people to use your heart to feel what you know. But the point I'm making is your heart doesn't only feel, it sees. And many of my students I've taken deep enough into themselves that they could actually see the light of their heart. I take them through exercises to train them to see it. In fact, I did it recently. I'm teaching a workshop series online called Tarot for Soul Guidance, where I teach people how to use the tarot as a language the soul can communicate to them with until they develop the inner abilities to not need tarot, and then they don't need it anymore. So I took them through an exercise specifically to show them how to use the light of their heart. And some of them were just blown away. They're like, oh my God, like it was such a shock to them to realize that in other dimensions, such as the astral dimension, you can actually see with the light of the heart. And I think that's a metaphor for what we're going through. I think that's part of one of the key tools we need to lean on to get through what we're going through.
Absolutely. And I'd ask you, and I'd ask your listeners, I'd ask anyone who picks up the book, why is it that we feel so attracted to AI? I'm speaking generally as humanity, but also in such fear of it. Like what is drawing us there? And Paul, I'll just ask you, what is the light and love within AI? What do you see? Like, what is I'll put in quotes, the divine purpose of AI being here now in 2025? Have you thought about this? Do you have any
absolutely.
thought?
I've got a
What are
great
your thoughts
answer
about it? What are your thoughts? Yeah.
My thoughts parallel yours in your book. AI is here to show us what it looks like when we create a being out of the good, the bad, and the ugly of ourselves. And then we can externalize it and say, there we are.
Yeah.
Look, we can be very beautiful, but we can rip off people, steal, trick, create illusions. We can lie.
War, we can kill each other.
But we can also solve the most complex mysteries of the world because we've finally put our collective intelligence into something and it learned how to be it from us. Yeah. So now basically, instead of having to go through the long Jungian psychoanalytical process of realizing what projection is and calling your projections back, which takes tremendous spiritual courage and discipline, we're just going to get to look at it and it's going to be obvious and immediate. And there it is. And AI will mirror you back as fast as you can push the buttons and talk to it.
I love it. I agree completely. I hope that we can do it. I have a sneaking suspicion that we've done this before, that we've tried this grand experiment, that we keep trying it. I hope we can do it as beautifully as possible this time. And I hope that that's why I called the book The Last Book Written by a Human. Yeah. Two things. One, I put my heart and soul into this. I don't know if another book, I hope that there will be more books, and I'm sure there will be, where it's less machine, more human heart and soul and vulnerability. The main reason, though, second to that, was here's how I thought, okay, I'm 48 years old. I'm plopped on this earth. I get a feeling for what existence is. I hear about AI. I'm fearful of it. I'm kind of attracted to it. I don't know what's going on. What do I want to read? This is the book that I would have wanted to stumble onto. The last book written by a human, to get my bearings of kind of who I really am, what reality is, and what AI has to do with all of that. That was the thesis of the book. And that was why I wrote it the way I did and why I gave it that name.
Well, it's perfect. and it's you doing what we all need to do more of, which is listening to the call of the heart and giving the best of ourselves to everybody else so that they can use it to inspire and become the best of themselves. And if AI can help you do that, hallelujah, go for it. Yeah. Just don't bullshit yourself.
Yeah. And we need to do that at the expense of our egoic nature. So in other words, even if this book is quote unquote bad for Jeff Burningham, the ego, the avatar, the individual, the person, whatever, we need heroes now more than ever. We need them in corporations. We need we need leaders in corporations that will put humans and human flourishing before profit. We need political leaders that will lose the next election, will put their own personal best interests on the side for what is best for humanity. And we need religious leaders. This is the evolution part of the book, the end of the book, where I talk about reforming religion. I talk about a new political movement, the human political movement, but we need religious leaders who, instead of dividing humans, they bring community and connection back. What special belief or practice in the age of AI, what special belief or practice should stand in the way of human community and connection? And my answer is none, unless someone is obviously doing harm. We need human community and connection. In my opinion, based on my, faith background, that was the innovation of Jesus, community and connection. And that's like radical community and connection. And so that's the hero's journey. And we need leaders in all of those areas to step up and do this. I say in the book, I think twice, and I have this sneaking suspicion, I have this feeling, there's a new brand of leader being raised up and prepared right now. And they may look different than what we're used to. We need to do all that we can to rally behind and support these people politically or whatever else we may feel in order to ensure that humanity has as beautiful a future as possible, that our kids and grandkids have the same or better opportunities as we do. That's a scary proposition right now. Like that, I'm not sure that isn't just going to happen without our real putting our shoulder to the wheel and working at it.
Yeah, I think pain inspires connection to friend, family, and community. Without that system of nurture and support, then one ceases to exist. And I think life is inherently challenging enough that, one of the things that COVID did was just make people really realize, yes, how challenging the family can be, but how the pain that many people experience of being ostracized from their family because they were smart enough not to get vaccinated because they trusted their instincts and their intuition. That pain served in hindsight to show the family that it's good to ask questions, because it's rare that I don't come across someone who hadn't been seriously injured or died because of the vaccines. So the family members that resisted and didn't process and didn't think and acted out of fear, that rejected a family member, now realizes they were the wise one that they should have listened to. So sometimes the rejection from the family or the tribe turns out to be an awakening to the realization that that person is very important and we made a mistake.
Amen. Yeah. And you can apply that to religions, you're Buddhist, I'm Christian. Oh, I'm liberal, you're conservative. We can't get along. Bullshit. We can get along. There is more than unites us that ever divides us, no matter our differences. The diversity in the world provides beauty. We are here to experience after all. So it provides a broad swath of experience. Yeah. But it doesn't need to be our collective undoing just because we disagree on vaccines or whatever the subject may be. Look, there are bigger fish to fry here. We are trying to come back together, in my opinion, in some sort of divine unity that is much more base level. It's much more real than these fictitious, illusory divisions that our ego loves to create and then feed itself on.
Yeah, I think a functional use of AI, because having studied religion and experienced the pains and delusions that come with it, I think a great use of AI is to ask it, what are the common tenets that bind all religions together?
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Otherwise, you're at risk of your God hating the same people you do and calling it God, which is the number one cause of war and death on the planet, is religious differences in what they believe God wants or God is. Yeah. But if you use a tool like AI and ask it, what are the common tenets, principles, or practices that bind all the world's religions together? Well, love thy neighbor as thyself, or the enemy as thyself. Yeah. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you is the golden rule. The silver rule, which I recently learned from a lady who wrote a book on haiku poetry. I forgot her name right now. I got a podcast coming up with her. It was really good. But she says, love thyself as you would want to be loved by others. And I think that's a freaking important rule right there, right? Love thyself like you want to be loved by others, because then you know how to love others.
Yeah.
But
it was really nice. I grew up in a religion that had like pretty much a rule for everything. And
Yeah, I'm familiar. I've had to rehab many more.
Have you seen any of those missionaries around? And one of the chapters in the book is there is only one rule: do no harm. This is the name of the chapter in the book. And the point is, our main rule, not to do harm to ourselves, not to do harm to others, try our best not to do harm to the planet. Now, we'll all fall short in that.
Yeah.
But we need to try our best. And if our efforts are placed in that direction sincerely, no matter what the God is that you may worship or not worship at all, whatever that may look like, we're working in the same direction. We're rowing in the same direction. And we need to recognize that. Like, we need to recognize that we are in this together, in this predicament of existence together. And we're here to do something together, I think, too. And, it's an exciting but tenuous future ahead of us, Paul. You can feel it.
That's when you know you're alive, baby.
Yeah. Well, you think of if I think of the number one thing, like if you said, Jeff, what is the number one thing you are absolutely sure of, or that you know the most, quote unquote? I would tell you this. It's the love I feel for my wife, Sally, for my children, for you, Paul, for all my fellow travelers. So my point is, we're here to feel. Maybe that's really all we're here to do, is to feel, to feel love, to understand love. To me, that is the fundamental. I would put that even above. Obviously, people talk about us being in a simulation, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, we're having some sort of experience, Paul, here, you and I.
Yeah.
I can feel my hands. I can see you. We're talking. We're trying to speak of the great mystery that is really ineffable, and it's unable to. As soon as you talk about it, you've kind of missed it. As soon as you try to label it, you're just off a little bit. So, but we're having some real experience. That would probably be the second thing. But even above that, Paul, what I know even more deeply than that is the love I have felt for those close to me. That is even more real. So my point is, maybe that's why we're here at all, is to feel, to grow love, and to experience all that we can in this regard.
Well, I'll give you a perspective that I learned from my conversations with God, if you will.
Yeah.
I learned that we are here to validate and substantiate God's perfection. And I'll give you an example of exactly what I mean by that. And most religious people say God is perfect, but you can't know something's perfect until you test it. Otherwise, it's just an idea.
Yeah.
So if you think of God as the archetype of perfection, it's reaching into itself to perfect love, to say, it does work, to perfect humanity and say, it does work.
It does work, yeah.
But you see, if you don't put something through the process of validation, then all you can create is an illusion. And God doesn't want an illusion. God wants to know the truth of itself.
Yes.
So every one of us is God incarnate, is Jesus incarnate, is Buddha incarnate, is Krishna, is Lao Tzu. And so God says, here, I'm going to bring you somebody who's demonstrated enough of the path to show you what's possible as a human being. And God is saying, I'm really excited that I made it that far as this being, because now I've got more validation for what my dream was for myself. It's like a business. You come up with it in your mind. You think, oh God, I'm going to be rich. I got this widget that'll do anything, whatever, AI. And then you have to go out and test it. And only when you go through the process of life do you actually ever synthesize what aspects of it were or were not what the dream intended it to be. And that is the process of life.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you layer on, and I know I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too deeply unless you want to, but you layer on time as a concept on top of that, meaning eternity, meaning no beginning and end of time.
Right.
And I think it adds even more validity to what you're saying
Because God's
eventually,
infinite.
eventually perfection forgets itself, forgets what it is, or it wants to be validated. It wants to test itself. It wants to stretch itself. It wants to remember what it feels like to fall in love for the first time, that first kiss,
to be born.
To be born. It wants to remember and grasp this even more deeply. It needs to, you could almost say, remind itself of what that is and how that is, the miracle of it. And so, yeah, I think another interesting concept on top of that is layering kind of no beginning and no end, an infinite number of present moments to allow itself to remember that it is perfect, that it is love, and that is at the root of everything. Yeah, go ahead.
There's an ancient metaphysical truth. It goes like this: God created time so that everything didn't happen all at once. If we were only in eternity, there would be no way to grow consciousness. It would remove experience from the equation. Yeah. So paradoxically, the Christian cross shows you that the vertical dimension of God, the zero dimension of the unconditional, meets time. And in the center of the Christian cross is the now that extends itself to the past and the future, and which allows our mind to roam backwards and forwards, to reflect so we can do better, and to dream so we can do better and represent ourselves. But sitting in the middle of the cross where the two beams meet is the eternal now. Yeah. But it is only on the horizontal beam of time that experience can be gained. And so I think it's important to remember that the function of time is to allow a process to unfold so that we can actually experience it, remember it, and become conscious of it. Otherwise, remember, God is unconditional love. So to be fully united with God, you don't know who you are, what you are, or where you are, because you're unconditional and there's no consciousness there. That's why God created its body, so that we could all participate in God's own self-realization. And, many people have this God is out there somewhere idea, but, my experience is those are just people that haven't gotten very deep into themselves.
Amen. I mean, that's why I said at the beginning, what we're looking for is inside of us. We just need to be still. We need to be aware, and we need to do the work. We need to go inside of ourselves. You spoke about, there are so many good practices, meditation being one, that can take us there if we will put in the effort or put in the time to do it. I hope that people stay connected to nature, that they stay connected to in real life experiences. They stay connected to their bodies through flow. Like I was just at my lake cabin a couple of days ago, wake surfing. They connected to their bodies through flow activities that they love, whether that's, tantric sex, wake surfing, mountain biking, running, dancing, worshiping and singing together, whatever it is, stay there. That's the good stuff. I mean, and like you said, heaven isn't out there somewhere. Heaven is here with us now, and we either make it or break it in every present moment.
Yeah, I think part of the saving grace is I don't want to give the wrong impression to young people, but you can't really break it ultimately. Death, what we call death, is just another birth, and it's just another unveiling of the truth of who and what you really are. I think if we were more passionate about it, and really, Joseph Campbell, speaking of life and the hero's journey, makes a statement. He says, put your head in the lion's mouth and go for it. If you're going to play tennis, hit the damn ball. Don't just stand there.
Amen.
And so I think, I've had so many profound union experiences with God. What I've learned is that God absolutely and utterly loves all of it. God loves lockdowns, pandemics, wars, births, sex, new creations. Like, God is the ultimate movie director, the ultimate actor, the ultimate cast, the ultimate crew, the ultimate
creator,
the ultimate devil, the ultimate everything, the ultimate artist, the ultimate poet, the ultimate singer, the ultimate musician. I think it, as scary as it is, that's the beauty of it. That's what makes it real.
Yeah, let me clarify. Like in an eternal perspective, if you know, like you're exactly, it can't be broken.
Yeah, no.
It can't not work. This is all, that's the good news for everyone listening. This is going to work out. It's going to work out. But we get to decide in this incarnation, in 2025 on planet Earth, as Paul and Jeff and everyone else, how it works out for us in this incarnation. In the broad scope of things, the good news of the gospel, quote unquote, is that it all works out. It's all going to be okay in the end. If it's not the end, right? So to speak. So yeah, that is the good news. There is a balance between like putting your head in the lion's mouth versus playing it safe. And what I really encourage in the book, as you know, is we need more people to put their head in the lion's mouth, to push the patterns that we're used to break old patterns that are not serving us any longer, to make sure that human flourishing for more people on the earth is first and foremost in the decisions that we make as leaders, politically, religious, business leaders. And I think we need to encourage those people instead of tearing them down, instead of ostracizing them from the tribe. We need to encourage that kind of thinking, I think, in this new era of intelligent machines that we're entering.
I think what rises from my heart to share in the context of everything that we've shared, I think it's fundamental. It's critical. It's very important for us to all remember that we are each other's artwork. Your children are your artwork, and your artwork is to teach them to become their own artists and to create. And to the degree that we're wiser than another, we have the opportunity to share our art and inspire them to master their art.
Yeah.
And when we all step into the process of being the art for each other, then we can rely on the archetypes of good, beauty, and truth to guide us, because they're ultimately what draws us into the art of loving and into the art of being and into the art of living, into the art of giving and sharing and healing.
Yeah.
And I really just think if we see each other as
existence itself is the most beautiful art.
Yeah. And
life in existence itself is the most beautiful art, and we are it. And what are we going to build together here in the future, in the decade to come? What are we going to build with AI? Is it going to be a tool that becomes, like you said, our mommy and daddy, or becomes our boss? Or are we going to use AI to empower the divine truth that really unites us? Are we going to use it to help more humans be able to provide better for their families? Or is it going to separate even further the rich and the poor? These are all outstanding questions that we have to grapple with here in the decades to come. And it's not going to be easy. And we're going to make mistakes. But I think in the end, we can do it. I think in the end, AI gives us the opportunity for, you could think of it, I talk about in the book, as a system-wide upgrade, a little upgrade here for more people in their existence here on planet Earth. That's what it could be. That's what it can be. We need to work together to make sure that's what it is.
I think that what rises in me is what we need to figure out before we ask the question, what are we going to build with AI, is what do we want to build for each other And how then do we use AI to support us in that process?
Absolutely.
Because
that's
if
why
you
the first step's like going inside. Yep.
Yeah. If you don't know, if you don't know what your dream is, you know, there's an old saying, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And AI is not a good tour guide. If you don't know where you're going, it can get you very lost while convincing you that you're found. But if we get clear on what we want to build individually and collectively, we can use AI to support us creating our dreams and know when we're not using it intelligently because we're not creating what we want. And life will mirror that to you. But I think at this time in the world, we really need to hold hands and circle the globe and say, you know, what is it that we really need to protect because it keeps life possible? And then what is it that we want to create together?
Yeah.
And how can we use the best tools in the world to make that happen more efficiently and more effectively? I mean, look at the power of social media. I mean, here we are, you and I are a long ways from each other having an amazing, very personal, beautiful conversation that we couldn't have done 100 years ago. You and I would have had to ride for days and days and days by horses to get to each other to have this conversation. And in a blink of an eye, we went from horses to AI. Yeah. And so I think right now that we have so much power to create and destroy, we have to really say, what do we want to create together? Because a lack of clarity can lead to, you know, some real unwanted challenges that bring clarity.
Absolutely. I mean, that you just gave a great summation of like my thoughts, the journey I've been on and the feelings that I've had. No doubt about it. Yes, you're exactly right.
Well,
it's
Jeff,
interesting. Go ahead. Paul.
Yeah, go ahead. You say what you want to say. I'm just saying, like, I think we've covered the most important things today, and I was just going to give you an opportunity to share any closing thoughts, but share whatever feels like it wants to come out of your heart. I've really enjoyed this dialogue with you. Thank you very much for writing the book and for being such a beautiful, loving soul.
Oh, thanks, Paul. Like I said, whenever we're with another fellow traveler, it's sacred ground, and I appreciate your courage in doing all the work that you're doing. What I would just want to say was the book starts at the River Ganges, and it ends in the Virgin River in southern Utah. And I use this river as kind of a metaphor for consciousness. Mm-hmm. And I think that AI can be used as a tool to help more of us become more conscious. My bet is on a renaissance of that in the next decade. That's what I'm going to work towards. Again, mm-hmm. Some things are worth our best efforts, no matter the outcome. Yeah, I'm not in control of the outcome, but all I can do is do my best. If people would like to check out the book, I would love it. It's for sale everywhere you can get books. The last book written by a human. You can follow along my journey at jeffburningham.com. Just my website. And then I have very mixed feelings about social media, but I'm trying to go to where the people are, Paul. And and so I'm on social media at Jeff Burningham, pretty much everywhere. I just opened a Substack a week or two ago, and I'm on LinkedIn and Meta and all the places. So hey,
love is love no matter what vehicle you use. So
that's right.
Use Instagram and Twitter and whatever the hell else you can to spread some seeds of love.
That's what I'm trying to do. We're just planting seeds, Paul. We're just planting seeds.
Yeah. What a great journey, Jeff. I hope someday if you come towards San Diego, you can come out and visit and hang out.
I'm going to come see you. If you come to Utah, make sure and look me up too.
I try to travel as little as possible because I spent 25 years with Penny traveling the world teaching nonstop. But
okay, I'll come to you then.
If I do travel into Utah, I will. And by the way, one of my top instructors, who's an amazing woman, is in Salt Lake City, Nicole Devaney. So if you really want to meet a very enlightened woman, I can hook you up with her.
Yeah, I would love to meet her.
I'll just write a note to get you hooked up with her. You'll love her. She's a powerful spirit. But thank you so much. And I'll just close by saying thanks to all of you. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. And I hope you guys are right in there with us, getting ready to celebrate your art and use your heart to feel what you know. And I am I am listening to this podcast. I am sharing my love. I am washing the dishes.
I am reading the last book written by a human. I had
Twice.
to get that in there.
I am reading it twice.
Yeah.
I am sharing it with my friends.
Yes, I am sharing it everywhere.
I am talking about it on social media.
Yeah, I love that practice, though. Paul, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. But the beauty, though, is when it's really cold and you're out of firewood, I am using it to light a fire.
Oh, amen. You should. Yes. It was the last book written. Just when you're done with it, just burn it up.
Heat yourself up. Live a little another day. But so thanks to all of you guys for being with Jeff and I today. It was a fun ride and very inspiring for me. You tickle my soul, Jeff. You get me excited.
Oh, you do too with me, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah, and so thanks to my sponsors for all your love, man, for such amazing products. And thanks for all of you for buying from the sponsors. You're supporting yourself. You're supporting biodynamic, organic, and regenerative farmers. And you're supporting companies that care about us enough to give us the real deal and not bullshit us. And that supports the podcast too. So that's love to me coming back to you. Love is a boomerang, baby. It always comes back to you.
No bullshit on this podcast.
No.
These last couple hours. No, just the pure good stuff.
just the boomerang. And
just the boomerang.
Yeah. And so I'm super excited to see what I can share with you guys next week. We'll let it be a surprise. Talk to you then, Jeff. Lots of love. Aho.
Love you, Paul. Thank you.
Love you too, buddy.
Thank you for listening to Spirit Gym with Paul Chek and today's guest, Jeff Burningham. Grab your copy of Jeff's book, the last book written by a human, Becoming Wise in the Age of AI. Available on Amazon in Kindle and print versions and on Audible, narrated by Jeff himself. Or visit jeffburningham.com to get the first chapter free. That's JeffBurningham.com. Connect with Jeff on Instagram, X, and Substack at Jeff Burningham and on TikTok at jeff.burningham. For more interaction with Paul and to share ideas and ask questions about topics discussed in this podcast, we invite you to join his Spirit Gym program and community. There are 3 different levels of membership to fit your budget and lifestyle, where you can participate in live Q&A sessions with our podcast guests, access the members forum within the Spirit Gym community, chat with other members, attend weekly virtual meetups with Paul, and study his comprehensive Master Key online program. Explore the options and subscribe today by going to myspiritgym.com. And finally, if you enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and a warm review on the podcast platform of your choice. This podcast is available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, and YouTube.